Hi, my name is Rich Coleman. I am the nephew of Christine Chatman, who was formerly known as the Boogie Woogie Queen. We are producing a trailer prior to the documentary coming out, and we are here in Ann Arbor at the beautiful Blue Llama Jazz Club. And I'm also really recognizing the amazing WEMU radio station that I've heard her music and those who she's performed with on the station. Please support our NPR stations as well as PBS stations that are carrying on the amazing work historically that we won't forget or never will we let it be erased. This is why this documentary is so important. We want everyone to know about her career, about her life, the amazing artists that she toured with and performed with literally all over the United States. I've watched every YouTube video that's on the Chatman circuit on Jump Blues, and unfortunately she's been left out. But here is the start of the amazing work that we're going to bring to you of Christine Chatman, the forgotten voice of Jump Blues, starting here with the trailer and my son Alex, and in his own words about how important this was for him, but also as we reflect on our family, the history of Jackson, Tennessee, through the amazing music circuit and her work and all of the artists that she performed with. Thank you so much. Stay tuned. Join us here at the trailer of Christine Chatman, the forgotten voice of Jump Blues.
History often remembers the giants of the post-war music industry, but it frequently overlooks the pioneering women who laid the very bricks of rock and roll. From the heart of Jackson, Tennessee, pianist and vocalist Christine Chatman broke barriers across the segregated music circuit of the 1940s. To understand her impact, we must look directly at the groundbreaking recordings that define her era. This particular initiative that we have been working on for so long, the Christine Chatman, the forgotten voice of Jump Blues. I am her nephew, Rich Coleman, and I am so excited to represent the family, the descendants of Christine Chatman with this initiative. With this production effort, we've done all the necessaries and continuing to do to make sure that we follow all the copyright laws, all of the publishing roles that are important to make sure that are recognized, as well as get permission. We've worked with a number of entities historically that have information not only about her career, but a number of the artists that she also performed with that also didn't get recognized. And so this is why this initiative is so important for us to bring to you. So what are we going to cover with this effort? We are going to be looking at, particularly as we look at 2026 and this effort, because we're rolling us into a two-part series that the final production will be released in 2027 based on information I've received from the publishing companies as well as the holders of the Decca, the specialty, the $1 million records, those companies that own those catalogs that I have been working with, because we want to share her music. We cannot do this in the trailer, but we're going to do that in the documentary. So we're looking at what have we covered this year. We're looking at the National Women's Tribute Month that happened in February of this year and how important that initiative was and why it's important to include my aunt, Christine Chatman, and her background and historical perspective. We're looking at June, African American Music Appreciation Month. Again, this is another part of this historical perspective of why this is important for us to share with you as well as bring forward. Alex's story, my son, he was in third grade when we first started this project, and how great it has been to not only work with him and all of my immediate family and cousins and in-laws, everybody that's been a part of the research that we have found about Aunt Chris and historically the importance of Jackson, Tennessee. And we look at this presentation and how we have to make sure in the trailer we present the Chatman family, because the siblings of Aunt Chris have been so instrumental in this historical perspective. And so not only do we share the Chatman sisters, but also the descendants. And we want to make sure that we do that. Our African American newspapers. What an amazing find. I have over 100 articles from the historical African American newspapers that Aunt Chris was featured in, not only with her performing and recording, but also the band routes, as well as what it meant as she traveled literally from to Chicago, Indianapolis, to Chicago, to St. Louis, and back home to Jackson, Tennessee, but up and down the East Coast to New York, Virginia. I mean, she traveled everywhere, all the way back south through Florida and to Mississippi. She traveled the West, and then after she finished in one area, she then moved to the West Coast, where literally that was such an amazing time for her, because that really branched out from the jump blues that she was performing to begin to become a part of this huge collaborative effort that occurred. But when we look at her band, her touring, becoming a session player, we also have to look at how did this happen. We look at historically who was booking the group. We're going to look closely at Denver Ferguson and the Denver Ferguson booking agency. His agency was one of two that did bookings for her and her orchestra and band throughout the Midwest and her touring career. We're also going to look at the recording sessions of Decca, Specialty, Millions, Chess, and others. And you will hear from Alex in his own words how important that project was when we started it, and where it was and how it is and perceived today for him some 20 plus years later. For me, I am also a professional musician and a recording artist. I am a drummer, playing since I was 6 years old, still playing, still recording. But for me, how important this was, the initiative that Aunt Chris and I shared together when I was touring with the show band Cinnamon, and we were traveling to Florida. I would come back to Michigan, but on my way back, I'd spend time in Jackson, Tennessee with her and my aunts. And it was so rewarding, because we had a chance to talk about not only the touring, but the challenges that she faced. And she wanted to know if it was different from me as a recording artist and performing in the nightclubs. And so we shared a lot of that information together, literally staying up all night looking at the photographs. She had multiple albums of all of the artists that she performed with, that she shared with me. And I had a flip phone. I was so disappointed when we discovered years later that a tornado hit downtown Jackson, Tennessee, and Institute Street was just a block or two over. So my mother's parents' home that one of my aunts in took a direct hit. And we're going to share that in the documentary, because my aunt Myra, who was in the home collapsed on her, and the Jackson newspaper had a front page article of her surviving all of that rubble that was on her to be able to pull it off, and her story, or what it was like to go through that initiative. But for me, this is so important as a musician and as a recording artist. I really, really understand what she was going through, and hearing her stories firsthand. And I'm of the many nieces and nephews. And we have others. I have my twin brother and I recorded and toured. My brother Hurley toured. We have other family members on the Chatman side that were also gifted speakers and toured and did a number of the same type of things. But for me, being a part of this music effort and talking with her one-on-one was quite fascinating, and I will never forget. And as I share throughout this documentary and this trailer, the personalization of what it was like for me in that process. And so we look historically at how this came about. Before the Chitlin Circuit, we had the Green Book, and then we had TOBA. And the TOBA was really a union group that looked at how do we help these African-American theater artists, vaudeville performers, how do we help making sure that they get booked? This book by Michelle Scott was absolutely phenomenal. I came across this with a number of other books. These are just a couple of the books that I have in my collection, understanding and reading about that era. But before the Chitlin Circuit, we had TOBA, the Green Book, TOBA, and then the Chitlin Circuit. And then we moved to Jump Blues, and then the progression of the music industry. But when we look at part of how this happened with the many artists who came through the Chitlin Circuit and the Blues Circuit, how did they get recognized? Where were the hot points? The number one that we see a lot of in historical perspectives and a number of the YouTube channel videos that are out, and I think I've watched all of them, well over 100 plus that I've watched, literally every video that I could find on YouTube that's been published about Indianapolis, about Chicago, about the Jump Blues performers, but every last one of them, Chris is left out. So this is something that for me was important to bring forward. But when we look at the Chitlin Circuit specifically, the number one spot historically, based on all of the research they've done, and now that we have AI, we even can refine it more. So the number one spot was Indianapolis, the Avenue, the booking king. Number two, Chicago, the ultimate circuit crown. Number three, Jackson, Tennessee, the circuit, the crucial highway, and how that particular town became the connector for all the rest of the South and the performers. Jackson, Tennessee really isn't on the map as much as it should be, with historically being a part of the music circuit. And we're going to show that because there were a number of articles that we found that highlighted the return of Christine Chatman back home and how that was covered in the historical African-American newspapers. So that traveling perspective, the one-nighters that a number of the artists played. And here's what that's so unique about Aunt Chris and her performing band and the orchestra. Not only was she a multiple musician and artist, she played multiple instruments, 13 as we've been able to uncover and define based on the recordings. But she also had an orchestra. She had a band that backed her up. So there were a number of singing groups that did not have musical acts to help foster their career and their sound. Denver Ferguson was a big part of making sure that they had that. And he used Chris's band and the Christine Chatman Orchestra to back them up. So when we look at this whole perspective of how did this happen for us? And I'm so proud of my son. When he was in third grade, when we started this process and looking at how do we make this happen, and that request to have in an iSearch, a family member, someone that you didn't know, how do you make this to the next step? How do you find that information about them to share with the community? So in this process, before we begin and talk to Alex, let's look at all of his best friends forever and important moments in his early career, our family and all of our family events, as Alex has moved through so many great things. But One of the things too for that was really exciting is that both Brittany and Alex had an opportunity to be with me at a number of my performances. And this was probably one of the most special when we opened for Meadow Lemon. The basketball fell off the stage, and who was down front who picked it up and began to engage with him was Alex. We brought him up on stage. He wanted him to talk to him because at that time we didn't know it, and he explained it to the audience that he also had a 4-year-old and he was missing him. So this just fit right in with him being able to have a full conversation with Alex on stage about autographing that basketball, but also asking how old he was. So that was such a cool moment for him. And also the other best friends for other family and people who are close to our family that have been so crucial to his life and that are important to him that we also want to make sure that we recognize. And in the recording studio for me, I loved having both of them and my family with me. And also one of my favorite pictures with Alex, that was one of the school events. And that just for me has always been one of my favorite photographs. But we look at the family and two sides of this with the Coleman family. We are the Big 10 plus. And with my parents, Martha Willette Chatman, who is Christine's younger sister, and my father, Pastor H.J. Coleman. And this is the Big 10 and siblings and descendants. And we had such a great time together as a family. And also the Zabrowski family. We have a lot of events that we've attended as well together with performances. And so we want to recognize how important families are to Alex and to all of us. The cousins. This is something that's so cool with all of the efforts that we've been involved with to be able to highlight his friends, his family members, and special moments that came about. Also, his brother, our next door neighbor, brothers for life. They grew up together. Darren, Simone, and Errol, and my wife Phyllis. What a great time that we had together. And also Lindsay, Alex's beau, and his they are just the sweetest couple. I love both of them being able to be together and how much fun that we've had. Also, Alex's big sister and all of the times that they've had together, but also sharing those special moments. When both of them graduated, she graduated from the University of Michigan's Musical Theater. He graduated from high school. Their graduation tickets were to the Grammys. We were in Los Angeles for the Grammys that year, and that was a part of just an amazing weekend there in Los Angeles. Alex and his mom, Phyllis, loves her son. So these pictures also reflect all of the times that they have together, but also how great this has been right from the moment go. So this documentary, as we prepare to hear from Alex, as he recalls and shares the historical impact of his presentation in bringing Christine Chatmans' career to the world. And this documentary, this is the jump off with this trailer of what we're going to be sharing in the documentary. The Forgotten Voice. You're going to hear from the descendants in the documentary of Christine Chatman. We're going to share her story, our story, in our own words. Why has this trailer been important in this documentary? There's been so much information written about her from others who don't know our family. We want to make sure we correct the record and get it straight. Let's hear from Alex. And hello and welcome to a very special moment in the documentary of Christine Chatman, my aunt, who I loved and adored, and of all of the nieces and nephews that were musicians and singers, that I was the only one who really was able to spend time with her while touring with a show band. And I didn't know at that time, with me playing throughout the South and the Midwest, that some of the places that I was going to, particularly playing in Florida, with the show band I was in at the time called Cinnamon in the mid 70s, that she also played Florida. She played Mississippi, she's in Georgia, New Orleans. She was in all of those cities. So talking with her and sharing with her the music was so critically important at that time. And I didn't know the magnitude of her recording and musical experience. And what launched this effort that we are at now, over 30 years almost.
Almost. Almost.
It started with this young man in the third grade. This is my son, Alex. We were at the Ann Arbor Open School doing an eye search. And the teachers recommended doing something on a family member, someone that you know, someone that you could do some history on to do a presentation in the class. I recommended, let's talk about Aunt Chris. Let's look up some information. And so in this documentary that we're titling Christine Chatman, The Forgotten Voice of Jump Blues. And I'm going to be walking us through in this documentary, literally over 100 articles that I've been able to uncover, starting with this research with Alex and here with our family. Alex, talk to me about what it was like for you going back. I know we're stepping back away. It's going
Almost
into
30
third
years.
grade. When you did that presentation and here it is. This is the PowerPoint. Let's see if we can get it on screen here. And we'll have these panels we'll have the panels that will be up that you will be able to see all of the information about this presentation that he did in third grade. But Alex, talk to us about what it meant for you all of these years later, knowing that at the start of this for our family, it was your presentation. What does that mean for you?
Well, first things first, thanks for having me on. First time I've made it onto the show. Well, thanks to Carolyn, who was the teacher back in, I believe this was third grade. She always wanted us to find a way to connect things back to our personal life. So when I was struggling to find something to do for the project, obviously we spoke about different influences, different things. Christine Chatman, great aunt of me, that was a great idea that you had. I remember being like, yeah, I don't know anything about her. Hadn't yet heard of her from family up till this point. But if I remember correctly, one of the first things you said to me was she played 9 instruments, if I remember correctly.
13 total, but
13.
We found out. 13
Even
later
more
on
than,
we found out it was 13 total, yeah.
Well, that's been one of the best things about this is the more we've looked, the more we found. Well, I'm sure we'll get into that. But she played instruments as well as she learned by ear.
Yes.
She would, if I remember correctly, her sisters would play in church, and she would come home and emulate what she heard.
Yeah.
Get onto the piano and recreate it, probably perfectly.
And that's exactly how it happened.
And that's how she started. And that part of the story, I think, grabbed me, as well as he gives me a lot of credit for this. But I saw how excited you were in talking about it. And that made me excited. That made me proud to see the way that your eyes lit up and remembering her influence on not only music, but on your life and the music that you created in it. And I remember we talked about all the artists that she worked with as well.
Amazing. She played with Lena Horne and Frank Sinatra. I mean, Lou Rawls. So many of the great artists during the Jump Blues era. And I think one of the things as we were doing that research that we discovered, which was so important, was how connected she was to the industry called the Chitlin circuit.
Yes.
And how important that was. And the influence on her, because she grew up in doing jazz, but gospel was always a part of that family dynamic with her 7 sisters and 1 brother. My mother, her sister, was also a piano player. Ma'am played, we called her Ma'am, it was Willette Chatman. She was one of the 7 sisters, and Ma'am played piano. And it was fascinating to see all of this history kind of played out for us. because you also got a chance to know Uncle Charles.
Yes.
And Uncle Charles and the family there in Detroit. Uncle Charles was such a great person with so much information and history, and just loved what his sisters were able to do through music. And so when we look at this, what the history that we uncovered with Aunt Chris, and then you put it in perspective with the history of our own family.
Yes.
Because
they're connected.
You were in the recording studio with me every time we went in.
Yes.
And talk about what that like when you think about Aunt Chris and her recordings and what she did, and then being a part of the recording sessions with me, and how that evolved. What was that like for you? Because even as a young guy, you loved the engineering side of it.
Yes.
And you were behind the board during several of the major recording sessions. What was it like for you when you think about Aunt Chris and her career, and then being a part of my career and the whole sphere of Coleman's, and then your big sister?
Yeah. And that's just the beginning of it. The more we find out. Well, one thing I can say is, as a young kid, and even I feel this way sometimes now, it seems like the fun is in front of the camera. Like that part's easy. Mm-hmm. What you're doing in the booth seems easy. Like you're just singing, you're just having a good time. And it felt like, as a young kid, this is where the magic is happening. Yeah. This is where a lot of the underappreciated work goes into it. Everything that goes into a music project is important. The work that is done behind the scenes, but as well as before the project. Yeah. To even become the artist that you are when you begin to record. And seeing how much work you would put in, obviously nothing to take away from you saying that in front of the camera appears to be easy, or in the booth appears to be easy, but to know how much you put into it, your engineers put into it, everyone who works on a project puts into it, the more I learned about Great Aunt Christine, the more I felt that she didn't get the credit she deserved.
Exactly it.
And since learning this, I feel like my eyes have been opened up to so many stories of other artists that were hurt either by the music industry as a whole, or the time and place. I mean, if she were alive making music today, playing these instruments, self-taught, as hardworking as she was, I'd love to think that she'd be a household name.
Absolutely, she would.
But as a Black woman in the 30s, 40s, 50s, she didn't stand a chance, really.
Right.
And so for me, it really is a nice opportunity, because it's more than just pride now. It almost feels like you and I have the opportunity to make something right.
Yes. She
always deserved this credit. You've always deserved this credit. And we are now able to put the spotlight on her that she earned during her lifetime. It may be 40 years later, but better later than never. Yeah. And that's, I think, the most beautiful thing that came out of this, is that not only am I learning more about my family, but I feel like she always deserved this.
Absolutely.
And I'm happy to be a part of that. And I'm happy that you brought me along for that.
And every time when I do interviews and have talked with all of these recording television stations and news crews with the historical marker in Jackson, Tennessee on August 1st of this year, 25, that was such a meaningful moment. James Cherry, who was the president of the West Tennessee Jazz Foundation, who called me out of the blue to tell me that they were working on the historical marker. And I was just so touched by that effort, and knowing that with what we did with you, with starting the research, and 30 years later, we're still finding information about her musical career and the challenges that she went through. And this is what the documentary will show. And I was just fascinated with getting these historical articles of over 500 shows that she did before she got a break.
Yeah.
That's just unbelievable. And knowing myself as a touring, we did 6 nights and then we had 2 days off. So that just is unimaginable to be able to know that you had to do that many shows. But The Chitlin Circuit, the definition that I'm working on in this documentary, Alex, with explaining her forgotten role, because there's so many artists beyond her and the group that she performed with that got a lot of notoriety, but there are a host of them that we're going to highlight that did not get that notoriety.
Yes.
And so for me, that's so important. And it started with what we uncovered very early on in this research and presentation on her life, her career, and even playing her music. We played Bootin' the Boogie that day for your classmates.
Yeah, we did.
And so showing them the pictures and knowing her family that we talked about, and her father, who was one of the first Black podiatrists in the South at that time, and what education meant for him. My grandmother, Mother Josie, we called Mama Josie, who was also a teacher and a musician herself. So music and education was a big part of the Chatman lineage. And my mother, her sisters, college teachers, it was just amazing, the accomplishments of this family, and being a descendant of the Chatman family, being a Coleman, and Paw, my father, who was also from Union City, Tennessee, my mother being from Jackson, where Aunt Chris was, and her family. And that connection with the descendants and the musical legacy that we were all blessed to be a part of and have is all kind of centered around the synergy that was happening there at Jackson, going to the home where we all sung and sit around that piano. That's in a number of the photographs that we're going to be sharing in the documentary. That Aunt Chris would play that. My mother played that piano. Aunt Lula played that piano. Mama Josie played that piano. Auntie Herlette, our oldest sister, who's no longer with us, also played that piano. And we're going to give credit to all of those incredible persons who were a part of this connection with Christine Chatman. We know her as the Boogie Woogie Queen, but I know her as my Aunt Christine.
Yeah.
Alex, thank you so much for being a part of this and setting the groundwork for this historical perspective of Christine Chatman's work. And we think about that day in class, being there with you, watching you do that presentation. And we're going to put some of the pictures up from that era with Mom, with Mother Phyllis, Alex's mom, and her sister Brittany, who was a part of the research. We all got involved, and it just never, and it hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
It hasn't stopped. So with this documentary, we hope to lay out a historical perspective of the amazing work of Christine Chatman. Love you, man.
I love you too. It's an honor to be on the show, an honor to be working on a project like this, and to shine a light on the generation of this family that really set the tone for who we are today. Growing up, music, love, hard work have always been pivotal. You know, the foundation of our family, and to think that it began so long before I did.
Yeah.
Great Aunt Christine Chatman, we love you. Proud of you. Happy to be able to do this for you. Proud of you, Dad, as well.
Yeah,
Great job. We've done a lot of work. He's done a lot of work to discover a lot of what was hidden. The unfortunate thing is we couldn't even easily access.
That's right.
Most of her work. It's not just that she was underappreciated during her life. It's that we couldn't appreciate her until this work was done. There's nowhere online a compilation collection of all of the things that she did until now. And I'm happy to be a part of that. And extremely proud of my family, the generation before me, the one before that, and happy to carry that legacy on into the future. And this is a great project to be a part of. I hope you guys enjoy it.
Absolutely. Stay tuned. We got more to follow with the history of Christine Chatman, the forgotten voice of jump blues. This is my son. I love him dearly with all my heart. Alex Coleman, who was at the heart of this whole project and how it started. And I'm so proud of him. And some 30 years later, we're still finding out.
We're doing it.
God bless you, man. I love you.
Love you too.
See everybody soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us here at the trailer of The Forgotten Voice of Jump Blues, Christine Chatman. Look for the documentary coming soon here in 2026 that we're going to do the deep dive on all of her career, the amazing people that she performed with, information from our family members who were there. I had an opportunity when I was touring with the show band to spend amazing time with her, watching her talk about her career, asking me about mine and what it was like to be on the road touring in the 70s. So I'm excited about this documentary because we've lived it since the I Search with my son Alex and our family. And we're going to hear all of our family members and those who have contributed to her amazing life in the documentary. Again, my name is Rich Coleman. Thank you for joining us here at the trailer for The Forgotten Voice of Jump Blues, Christine Chatman. Thank you so much. See you soon.